In a village named Uda, there lived a young man called Ekene. Ekene came from a family of two children, he and his elder brother. They were both orphans and had no one but themselves. They were so wretched to the extent the only thing they ate every day while growing up was gari. It was a thing of surprise that they were still alive and healthy. 4 years back, their father had died of a strange sickness. The village herbalist said he lacked enough blood, but unfortunately, they weren't able to gather money to give him a proper treatment. Sometimes, you can see tears flowing through Ekene's eyes whenever he sees mothers with their children, handling them with love and protecting them from harm. He always felt life had robbed him of such wonderful experience. His late father had told him the painful story of how his mom had died in the labor room while giving birth to him. She was in severe pains until she passed away. Ekene had never met his mom, but he really loved her and wished so much that he had met her. He had never experienced motherly love, and it was extremely painful. Meanwhile, his elder brother Ikenna was already a married man. His wife Amaka was a very hardworking woman, and she had already given Ikenna 4 kids, and they were all boys. They all lived in a public two-bedroom flat. Due to the fact that his brother Ikenna was so lazy and nonchalant, his wife Amaka had no choice but to feed him and the kids. He wasn't bothered at all and let her take up all his manly responsibilities. Ekene, on the other hand, was such an industrious man. He started building his wealth from scratch without any inheritance or help. After all, who would have helped him? We all know a poor man has nobody. His brother was too lazy to help himself, not to talk of him. Knowing he had no one, he had to work with sweat and blood, like his life depended on it. He had to take several menial jobs. During the day, he would go to the farm and help people in order to make ends meet. He received all manner of insults, but it didn't bother him. Sometimes, he will go to people's homes and wash their clothes. That was definitely a job most men will never dream of doing. Mr. Man, don't spoil my clothes oh. The price of these clothes can feed you and your entire generation. Look at you. Your mates are out there doing something reasonable and you are here smelling like a pig. Make sure you wash them well oh. If you don't. These were the words of a woman he had washed clothes for. He had received many insults similar to these from other people, but he was determined not to let their negative comments get to him. Although he succeeded in ignoring the insult most times, he will sit down and think about life. He wondered what he had done to deserve such a miserable life. He wondered what his future held in store for him. And eventually, he would say a little prayer to the Supreme God, Chukwu. He had come to realize he was still better than those who were lazy or weren't even trying to make their lives better. He would give himself a little word of encouragement, and after that, he would get back to work. He was so sure that no matter how long it will take, he would achieve his dreams. It was a sunny and a good day for Ekene. He had made more than he had expected. It was just afternoon, and he had already made what he usually makes in a week just in one day. One of his customers had given him a job to harvest the cassava he had planted. When the man saw how big and bountiful his harvest was, he was so happy that he gave Ekene some of it as a gift. Ekene was so thankful, and immediately he went to the nearest market and sold them off at a very good price. Tired from all the farming, he bought egusi soup and swallow, and he sat under a tree to eat. As he was eating, he saw an old woman with a walking stick towards him. "My son, I haven't eaten anything, and I'm so hungry. Please, help me with little food." Although he was still hungry, he gave her all the food because he felt she needed it more. Before leaving, she gave him a tiny purse. He was so curious to know what was in the purse, so he decided to open it. There was a folded white fabric in the purse. When he opened it, he saw a message written on it. "Come to the Igwe's palace tomorrow. Tell them Ezinne sent you," were the exact words written on the fabric. Dumbfounded, Ekene wondered if it was a joke or a prank. Am I in trouble? He thought to himself. Why do I need to go to the king's palace? Chai! Even though the letter was probably a prank, he decided to wear his best clothes and visit the king's palace the next day. After all, there's no harm in trying. When he got to the king's palace, he showed the guards the purse and the fabric. Immediately they saw it. They let him in. It turns out that the purse was a royal purse used in inviting special guests. The palace was such a beautiful place. There were maids everywhere. He couldn't stop staring at the beautiful flowers and lovely designs on the wall. At this point, he was sure he was dreaming, so he pinched himself to see if he would wake up from this unbelievable dream. But he was still in the palace. Hey, so it's not a dream, eh? He said in surprise. A maid ushered him into one of their guest rooms and asked him to wait for the Igwe and his mom. He was told they will be back in the evening, so he will have to wait. My God, why does the king want to see me? Does he know me? Chineke. Ekene was so nervous at this point because he had never met the king before and didn't know why he wanted to see him. While waiting, he was served a very delicious meal. He had never gotten this type of special treatment before, and so he felt like a king. After long hours of waiting, the king finally came back and he was called to another chamber to see him. When he got there, he saw the king and the old woman he had seen yesterday. He was shocked to find out that she was the king's mother. According to her, she loves to disguise and take walks without being noticed. He then told the king that he's the farmer she told him about. During her walks yesterday, he had seen the type of huge cassava he had sold in the market, and after a little investigation, she found out he was the one who planted and harvested them for someone. The king was so impressed and said, I need someone to manage my farm. What other types of farming are you good at? Ekene was filled with joy. Then he began to list the plants and animals he is capable of taking care of. He had learned the skill from his father, but unfortunately, he never had a land of his own, and the little he got from farming jobs couldn't afford the land at the moment. The king immediately told him he was hired, and also told him how much his monthly salary would be. Ekene leaped for joy. Only a month's salary was enough to buy him a land and change his entire life forever. He couldn't believe his ears. He was also going to be living in the palace and was assigned a maid to take care of him. He was going to be fed daily and his wardrobe will change, so he will look more sophisticated. The maid assigned to him showed him his apartment. It was very far from the main palace building and close to the palace farm. He was showed the farm he was meant to manage. The farm was so huge, it occupied several acres of land, and there were people waiting to see him. Immediately he passed through the farm gate. A man signaled to everyone to come together. The maid with Ekene introduced him to all of them and told them he's the new manager in charge. Everyone introduced themselves and stated the jobs they do in the farm. Ekene felt blessed. It was at that moment he finally accepted that the job was real and he had become a boss in a day. He entered the apartment they gave him and started thanking God for this wonderful miracle.
Make sure you like and subscribe for part 2 and don't forget to turn on your notification as well. Bye.